Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The AP Top 25 poll gets released Monday afternoon, and of course, it's generating a lot of buzz in terms of teams that might be overrated heading into 2024, teams that might be getting slept on a little bit. Want to dive into this Miami Hurricanes program, talk about why the country might be sleeping on this program heading into 2024, coming in at the number 19 spot. Now, you look at this Miami Hurricanes program, I think a lot of Miami fans would probably agree with this take as well, and that is we've seen this program get a lot of a buzz heading into a college football season, but kind of fail to live up to those expectations Saturdays in the fall. Want to get into why I think this Miami Hurricanes team is different heading into 2024. Talk about a few key aspects of this program that, I kind of used to evaluate heading into a college football season. Really excited to get into this one. Now, before we do, and as always, would love to hear from you guys in the comments section, whether you're a Florida Gators fan, a Florida State fan, a Miami Hurricanes fan, just a college football fan. There's going to be a lot of different takes surrounding this Miami Hurricanes team. It's a polarizing program. That's the beauty of college football in my mind. That's the reason I fell in love with this sport in the first place. Would love for you guys to just let it fly in the comments section, whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me. We'll chop it up down there. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into why I think this Miami Hurricanes team is different heading into 2024, which has been a very common question asked to me in the comments section. It's been no secret that this is a Miami Hurricanes team that I'm believing in 2024. And I get a lot of questions in terms of, hey, we've seen this kind of hype around this Miami team over the last couple of years in the offseason. Why is this the year you're believing in this program? I think it starts with quarterback play. And you kind of look at the quarterbacks when you start stacking them in the top 25 teams. When you look at that kind of range between 10 and 20, I think Cam Ward has a very good argument at really being one of the better quarterbacks that you see in this list. You could go and start at Penn State. You're taking Cam Ward over Drew Aller. I'm a Michigan fan. You're taking Cam Ward over whoever kind of shows up as the starting quarterback for Michigan. I think a lot of Florida State fans would probably have preferred Cam Ward as opposed to DJU in the transfer portal. I've been vocal that I think DJU is going to have a good year for Florida State, but I would probably give Cam Ward the edge in that conversation. You look at some of the other teams ranked ahead of Miami and Kay Klubnik at Clemson. You look at Alan Bowman at Oklahoma State. I think first and foremost, why we should be believing in this Miami Hurricanes team heading into 2024 is they have a quarterback that I truly think is a difference maker heading into 2024. Now, I think one of the things to really believe in terms of Cam Ward is we've seen him play some really good football at Washington State over the last 2 years with an offensive line, a running game, wide receivers that I don't really think are in the league of what the Miami Hurricanes have coming into the 2024 season. So we've seen Cam Ward play some really good football with not the best surrounding talent. Now you fast forward to heading into 2024, I think they have an NFL caliber running back. I think they have multiple NFL caliber wide receivers. I think they have one of the better offensive lines that you'll see in the country. When you look at this Miami team, the number one thing that I think differentiates this program from what we've seen in the past is quarterback play that can elevate this team, win those important games that you just saw kind of Miami not be able to win over the last couple of years. You take a look at some of the quarterback play, Tyler Van Dyke or Emory Williams. It wasn't good enough in the last couple of years. I think Cam Ward is certainly that guy that elevates this Miami Hurricanes program. I think number two, and this is outside of the quarterback position, which again is the most important position in all of college football. The second thing that I look for is how complete these rosters are. Where you look at some of these other teams that are ranked ahead of Miami, you have some major question marks about some of these programs, right? You look at Oklahoma at 16, massive question marks about the offensive line heading into the SEC. You look at Clemson, big time question marks about what that offense can do, manufacturing explosive plays. You look at Michigan coming in at number 9, massive question marks about the quarterback play. You look at Notre Dame at number 7 and say, hey, we got to replace 2 NFL tackles. Our projected starting tackle at the left on the left side just went down with a season-ending injury. There's not that many teams that you look at ahead of Miami and say they don't have kind of glaring question marks heading into the 2024 season. You look at Miami and say they're checking a lot of boxes. I think that one question we have about Miami heading into 2024 is what that secondary looks like where they're young, they're inexperienced. They grab some guys in the transfer portal, might have some true freshmen like Zaquan Patterson playing significant snaps in 2024. That's certainly a question mark. But over the last couple of weeks and months, my question mark about this Hurricane secondary has kind of been mitigated because of how good I think this pass rush can be. And you look at this Miami team, if you want to throw the football against the Miami Hurricanes, you're going to need to be elite in pass protection because this defensive line for Miami, I truly think is going to be one of the better units that we see, not only in the ACC, but in the country. That matters. You look at all the best defenses across the country over the last couple of years. If you were to pick where to have your question marks and where to have your strengths, it'd be question marks in the secondary and having an elite pass rush. Because if you can get after the passer, you can hide a secondary that might have some questions at a pretty high level. I think number 3 is line of scrimmage. I think this is probably one of the reasons. Now, I kind of used this analogy a couple of different times. You look at Texas last year, a very similar team in terms of a team that's always garnered some of the offseason hype, but really never lived up to the expectations come Saturdays in the fall. What made Texas different in 2023? What made the hype kind of believable in 2023 was they were elite along the line of scrimmage, and they headed into that Big 12 season in 2023 probably having the best offensive line in that conference, certainly having the best defensive line of the conference. And you look up and say they were a top 4 team in all of college football last year. That was the reason that we believed in Texas 12 months ago. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm believing in Miami heading into 2024. I think this offensive line really only gets better heading into 2024. You had a true freshman right tackle starting that certainly had some growing pains that we expect to get much better in Francis Maui-Noah. You return guys like Inez Cooper, Jalen Rivers. We feel pretty good that this offensive line is going to be really good. Then you look at the defense and say it is loaded along the line of scrimmage. You have the ability to really play the game according to how you want it to be played. If you want to run the football, you can run the football. If you want to throw the football around, you can pass protect, and you have a quarterback and wide receivers where you can throw it around the yard. And then you look on the defensive side of the football, if you have the ability to stop the run and get after the passer, it's really easy to kind of take control of games. And again, what's been the biggest differentiator between those elite teams in college football and the teams that are just solid? It's been line of scrimmage, right? Georgia the last couple of years, Michigan in 2023, line of scrimmage matters. And I think Mario Cristobal has built this roster to really start along both sides of the line of scrimmage. That's another reason you're kind of believing in Miami. And I think number 4 is NFL talent. You look at where team, I mean, it's not a coincidence, right? Michigan wins a national championship, puts the most guys into the NFL draft in the country last year. I mean, when you have Florida State's another really good example, right? They had the NFL talent. That's why they won so many football games in 2023. Georgia's obviously a phenomenal example as well. Having that elite NFL talent often separates those teams, and not to take a shot at a team like Kansas State or Oklahoma State where, hey, it's a really solid team. There's not a lot of holes in those programs, but do they have the guys that are going to go top 150 in the NFL draft? The answer is probably not. And that's really been a problem for Miami over the last couple of years where they've had guys that are highly coveted out of high school but never really manufactured and kind of turned into that elite NFL talent. You look at this Miami Hurricanes team in terms of NFL talent, in terms of proven difference makers. You start on the offensive side of the football, Cam Ward. I would have gone probably day 2 in the NFL draft, comes back for another year, probably only going to play better than what we saw at Washington State. You have at least in my opinion, a top 10, maybe even top 5 running back in Damian Martinez, guys like Xavier Restrepo, guys like Samuel Brown, who are going to go to the NFL over the next couple of years. Then you look on the defensive side of the football, Ruben Bain, too young to go to the NFL, but one of the best edge rushers that we'll see in the country. Tyler Barron probably would have been a day 2 pick, dominated in the pass rush in the SEC last year. Simeon Barrow Jr., very similar conversation, but just in the Big Ten. Akeem Hezador, a guy that I'm a believer in. You look at the linebacker room, Kiko Maui-Noah probably would have gone to the NFL had he wanted to last year. I think this team has that top-end NFL talent. I think there are 5 or 6 guys that have a very good shot at going top 200 in the NFL draft, potentially even more players, some guys that are young that might have to wait a couple of years. So you start looking at quarterback play, the overall composition of the roster, not having many holes, being strong along the line of scrimmage, and then having that premier NFL talent. Those are the things that I think are different about Miami heading into 2024 than years past. Now, I'm not necessarily sure where I would slot them in. I have them much closer to the top 10 than the top 20. But I think this Miami Hurricanes team is getting slept on, and it makes sense, right? To kind of close this one out, it makes sense for media members to look at this Miami team and say, hey, we're getting a lot of buzz. They look good on paper, but we're going to keep them at 19 because they haven't been a program that's been able to manufacture that offseason success on the football field. But for the reasons we just talked about, I think they might be different heading into the 2024 year. That's why I am higher on this Hurricanes program than a lot of others across the country. Again, would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. I know there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with that take. And there's a chance that we might be wrong about this Miami team, but heading into 2024, it does feel different. Would love to get the feedback from you guys in the comment section. Of course, appreciate y'all rocking with the fellas. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.